Looks like there's an opportunity for the Clippers to pick up a 3-and-D player, a key player from the Los Angeles Lakers. I would say a vital player, if you ask me, from the Los Angeles Lakers. We talk about, their situation in regards to not having defense, not being a defensive sound type team. They don't play with any defense, which is the reason why they can offensively build leads this past year and losing to teams like the OKC Thunder and teams like that, being up by 20, 25 plus points, because their defense is so horrid. It doesn't allow them to finish out games and dominate games where a lot of people thought they would be able to, just because they got so much superstar talent on their team, at least name wise on the roster. But, the player that I'm speaking of that the Clippers have an opportunity to get or steal from the Lakers is Avery Bradley. Now, Avery Bradley is definitely not the player he once was, I'd say, several years ago. I think a lot of Lakers fans, kind of died out on his buzz when it was the incident in the bubble. Well, I wouldn't say it's an incident, but when the bubble happened a few years ago and he decided not to show up because I think it was something going on with his son, which to me, that's very understandable. I just don't feel like there should ever be a line crossed there. If it's any type of family member or anything, or not even that. I mean, I think it might have just been, maybe a part of that. Maybe the part of him, he just didn't want to come to the bubble, because he just didn't feel comfortable being in it. So, I mean, you can't really fault anybody for that, but I feel like a lot of Lakers fans or some people that I've spoke to, personally, really didn't take too well to that, because they thought maybe it was just him not wanting to come rather than it being an issue with his son or whatever the case may be. I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm not here to do that. So I'm not ever going to cross those lines with anybody if they say they can't be somewhere and if it's something detrimental to them. So my point is, when I look at the situation, if the Clippers were able to acquire Avery Bradley, it would be a situation where they don't have to give up much to get him. I mean, Avery Bradley only averaged about 6.4 points a game last year, maybe 2.5 rebounds, but he still can play defense a little bit. And surprisingly, last year, he was actually probably one of their best 3-point shooters. He shot 39% from the 3-point line last year. So he's definitely still a 3-and-D player. And I know his defense is not what it once was a few years ago, but at the same time, he still can play defense some. And here's the reason why I feel like the Clippers can utilize what he does very, very well, and it'll work to the Clippers' advantage even more than it did for the Lakers, is because, first of all, the Clippers are a defensive team. So if you put somebody like Avery Bradley with the team that's currently constructed with the Clippers, he doesn't have to play the hardest defense or defense to the level that he used to a few years ago. Only thing he have to do is stay in front of his man, kind of cause some deflections, have some active hands, keep your defender in front of you as much as possible. And really, if his defender gets by him, well, the Clippers have guys who can rotate and very versatile on defense, like Nicholas Batum, like Robert Covington. Then, you're going to have Kawhi Leonard, you're going to have PG. You have guys who can rotate over and switch so well on defense and so versatile on defense. It really will make Avery Bradley's job a lot easier if the Clippers were able to acquire him, because he would be on a team where he wouldn't be forced to be the best defender on the team just because the team's defense is so horrible the way the Lakers defense was last year. And that's the reason why I think a lot of people in Lakerland say that he's washed and he's done, because nobody else on the Lakers played any defense. So he was supposed to be looked at as the premier guy on defense that they had, because everybody else didn't play it at all. And whereas if he played for the Clippers, he wouldn't even have to worry about that. He would just be able to come on the team and play defense to the best of his ability. And I still think he could play defense some. Like I said, he's not the level he once was, but he doesn't really need to be, because when you're on a team that has defense like the Clippers, I mean, you could really be a halfway good defender and still be decent. I mean, look at Luke Kennard. There's a lot of games where I saw Luke Kennard. He's not the best defender. He's a really, really good 3-point shooter, but he comes into the game, he's gotten steals, he causes turnovers at times, but you know why he's able to do that? Because there's so many other good defensive prowesses around him. It allows him to be kind of, free on defense and allow him to kind of, take chances on defense. And see, you can take chances on defense and, swipe for the ball, maybe hopefully not draw a foul and get some turnovers, cause turnovers. You can take chances on defense when you have a good all around defensive team. And that's the same thing I'm saying with Avery Bradley, he would be coming to a team where everybody is stacked. Everybody is definitely stacked on defense. Their offense is always, their offense is good as well. They're one of the top 3-point shooting teams the last couple of years. And last year they was rated one of the highest defensive teams, even without Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So like I said, coming on the Clippers would be a really good thing for him because it would make his job a lot easier. And like I said, he would be utilized in moments where they really need him the most. And he would be a good switch off on certain, offenders, certain players that they're playing on offense. They can actually throw different bodies at him and see. He would be an extra weapon that Ty Lue would love to have at his disposal because there again, he shot 39% from the 3-point line. Well, the Clippers have been one of the best 3-point shooting teams the last couple years, actually, especially year before last when Kawhi Leonard went out with the ACL tear in the playoffs. That season, they were the number 1 3-point shooting team. And I believe they were the number 1 free throw shooting team, if I'm not mistaken. So this is my point. Avery Bradley would be coming into a situation where he would just be what he is, a 3-and-D guy, and he would be utilized to a better standard. And this is why I said I think Ty Lue would be able to use him more on the Clippers than the way the Lakers did in, where they are, because I feel like I said, they were just trying to ask too much out of him, and that's not where he is in his career. He needs to come off the bench of a team at times and, go in there, play his defense, don't have to average too many minutes. Go in there and play his defense, lock down as much as he can, and when his number is called upon, knock down, big shots. Avery Bradley can still do that. Shooting 39% from the field, that's somewhere around the range of, a Luke Kennard or somebody else on the Clippers. So, when you look at that in its entirety, he definitely is more of a fit for the Clippers than he is the Lakers. And I definitely would like to see, the Clippers go after him. And because I believe, based the way the reports say, he's not going to be a Laker this offseason. He's going to be one of the ones that's going to go, basically let him go for nothing really. And there again, for the Clippers, that's a good thing because they wouldn't have to give up hardly nothing or anything at all to get a player like Avery Bradley, which will serve value for them in the long run, especially like in big playoff games, playoff moments. Avery Bradley will, he can get a big steal. He can knock down a big 3. He can do things like that. So I feel like he would, definitely value, his position there with the Clippers, but the Clippers would definitely value him as well. So, like I said, I don't care if the Clippers pick up players or anything like that. That's 100% fine as long as you don't have to, give away too much to get something back. That should be the Clippers' motto this whole offseason. And with a player like him who still has some value left, the Clippers would be able to utilize him a lot more than the Lakers did. So I definitely hope the Clippers find a way to acquire somebody like him, because I definitely think in the long run he would serve value for the Clippers, unlike what he did with the Lakers. Because the Lakers they're just so bad on defense. It doesn't matter whether they get a head coach or whatever the case may be. They're going to need to revamp that roster to be a much better team. That's just the way it's going to be. As long as Russell Westbrook is there, LeBron is aging, and AD stays hurt all the time, they're not going to go too far. And then a bunch of the old guys they got on their team, they're just too old to play defense. And half of them, I say at least 1 or 2 of them off the top of my head, like Carmelo Anthony, never played defense in his career. So you're asking people to do things there that they couldn't do. So Avery Bradley was one of those lone type players trying to, come in and be the Avery Bradley of 6-7 years ago. And that's just really not who he is. And then really at this point, as I said, that's not who he needs to be. And the Clippers can put him in better position to play his role and play it effectively and don't wear him out on defense throughout the season, so they could utilize him more when they make their playoff run and contending for a championship. But hey, that's my take on everything. Leave any comments in the comment section as always. And hey, Khaliis out.